Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're taking a massive stack of sources, articles, critical reviews, expert notes, and really distilling them down to the essential knowledge you need to be genuinely informed. And our sources today were, well, they were fascinating, incredibly detailed. We weren't just skimming articles. We dug into this list of 59 really challenging questions at the intersection of public health and religious scholarship. The topic is the spiritual practice of Ramadan fasting, specifically dry fasting, no food, no water, for many hours, and how that practice interacts with, modern medical science. Our mission is to unpack the medical realities, the actual theological consensus, and the often intense social pressures around it, especially for vulnerable people. This is about clarity, really, separating fact from cultural tradition.
What's fascinating here, and this was the core discovery for me, is how it shifts the whole frame. We kind of assume there's this tension between faith and health science.
Right, that they're at odds.
But we found the opposite. Islamic legal scholarship and mainstream medical consensus are, for the most part, highly aligned on the importance of personal health and safety. The problem, as you dig into the material, it isn't the religious framework. The conflict that puts people at risk is almost entirely cultural. It's the social pressure.
Okay, so let's start there at the foundation, because that context is just so critical. When you look at classical scholars like Al-Ghazali, or even modern bodies like the Al-Azhar Fatwa Committee, what's the primary objective of the fast?
It's clearly spiritual.
It's about discipline, self-control, empathy. It's not sold as a, universal health or detox plan, even if that narrative is popular.
Exactly. And because the purpose is purification and empathy, the foundational legal principle across all major Islamic sects, Sunni, Shia, all of them, is incredibly simple. Harm overrides the obligation.
That's a powerful maxim to start with. Harm overrides obligations. How does that play out in practice?
It means that if fasting is deemed by a trustworthy doctor, or even just from your own past experience, to cause severe hardship or make an illness worse, the status of the act actually changes.
No longer required.
It moves from obligatory to makruh, which is disliked, or in some cases it can even become haram, which is forbidden. The framework provides what's called a rukhsa,
A concession.
a concession and exemption, and the list is comprehensive. The sick, pregnant, and breastfeeding women, the elderly, travelers, and children.
And this is where we hit that central tension. It came up again and again in those 59 questions. If the rukhsa of these exemptions are so clearly defined, why do we constantly see people fasting against explicit medical advice?
That's the gap. The theological answer is clear. Don't fast if you're sick. The social answer, unfortunately, is often fast anyway, or you'll face judgment, maybe shame from your community, and that's what puts people in the hospital.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's get right into the immediate physical consequences of the dry fast itself. We're talking about no food and no water for, 12 to 18 hours? What happens to the body in that window? Especially in extreme heat, say 40 degrees Celsius.
The most immediate, acute risk is dehydration, and it's the body's attempt to compensate for that lack of fluid that creates the real danger.
Okay.
When you don't drink, your body has to pull water from the bloodstream to keep your essential organs working.
So your blood is literally getting thicker.
Precisely. The term is hemoconcentration, and this thickening of the blood, it has immediate and profound risks. It significantly increases the viscosity, which raises the risk of thrombosis, blood clots, and, critically, stroke.
Wow. So that completely undercuts the popular idea that dry fasting is a detox.
It's the opposite. If anything, you're concentrating waste products in your system, not flushing them out.
And what about the kidneys? They must be working overtime to manage all this.
They struggle significantly. The concentrated urine combined with no fluid to flush the system, it dramatically elevates the risk of forming painful kidney stones. And it increases your susceptibility to UTIs, which is especially dangerous for anyone with pre-existing chronic kidney disease.
Let's drill down on the single highest risk group we saw identified across every single medical source: people with diabetes.
Yes.
The risks here are, well, they're terrifyingly specific. For diabetics, especially type 1, you're facing a triad of dangers. You have hypoglycemia, which is dangerously low blood sugar.
Then hyperglycemia, dangerously high blood sugar.
And then the life-threatening emergency known as diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA.
And that triad is why this population is medically exempt. If the body doesn't have enough insulin or fuel, it starts breaking down fat at an incredible rate, flooding the blood with acidic ketones. That's DKA. It is a medical emergency. It can lead to a coma or even death.
And there was a specific, very alarming statistic that really demonstrates this. Studies show a 5 to 7 times higher risk of severe hypoglycemia in fasters with type 2 diabetes.
That's the smoking gun right there. This is why major medical guidelines, like from the International Diabetes Federation, they strongly advise these patients not to fast. And I want to reiterate this, the religious scholars are right there with the doctors.
That alignment is so key.
Patients with brittle diabetes, severe heart disease, they're told not to fast by both modern medicine and modern Islamic jurisprudence. It's a consensus.
Which makes the social pressure so much harder to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition a bit. Let's talk about the more subtle, cumulative health impacts. Not just from the fast, but from the massive disruption of the schedule around it. What the sources call the nocturnal lifestyle.
Right.
Think about it. You've got late-night eating at iftar, a pre-dawn meal, late prayers. For 30 straight days, your entire sleep-wake feed cycle is flipped on its head.
And this is so much more than just feeling tired. This is a full-blown issue of circadian misalignment. You've totally reversed the body's hormonal clock. At night, when your body expects rest, you're asking it to digest a huge meal.
And what does that do hormonally?
It dramatically increases the stress hormone cortisol and elevates inflammation markers throughout your whole system. These hormonal shifts are really the root cause of that chronic fatigue, of the brain fog, and the suppressed immune functions so many people report.
So it basically nullifies any benefits you might get from, say, controlled intermittent fasting.
It can, yes. The studies on IF stress the importance of a consistent sleep schedule to let processes like autophagy, the body's cellular cleanup crew, function properly. When you flip the cycle, you introduce so much metabolic stress, you risk negating those benefits entirely.
Which brings us to this counterintuitive weight gain paradox. Many people, despite starving all day, actually gain weight. Why does that starve-feast cycle promote fat storage?
It's a primal metabolic response. After, say, 16 hours without any fuel, your body is in survival mode. Then, at iftar, you consume a massive, often carb-heavy meal. The body reacts with a huge insulin spike.
And it panics, basically.
It panics. It interprets that sudden flood of calories as a sign that it needs to prepare for the next famine. So it switches into an aggressive fat storage mode, which can increase insulin resistance over time. The initial weight loss people see is almost always just water and muscle tissue, not fat.
And as the sources point out, the quality of the diet often doesn't help. Lots of fried foods, sugary drinks. That's cultural, not religious.
Absolutely. The problem isn't the fast, it's the feast that follows, which is culturally driven and frankly metabolically disastrous.
And here's where these personal health risks start to bleed into public life. Public safety. We found documented evidence of this.
Yes, this was really interesting.
The sources cite studies showing a measurable spike in traffic accidents in the hour right before iftar. That's peak dehydration, peak low blood sugar. Your judgment is impaired, your reaction times are slower.
It's a clear public health issue. And what's fascinating is that the theological consensus addresses this directly. For people in safety-critical jobs, pilots, surgeons, even bus drivers, the rulings are explicit. If the fast compromises the lives of others, you are religiously exempt. You must break your fast on workdays.
That is such a critical point. It confirms, again, that protecting human life supersedes the personal obligation to fast.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift to specific vulnerable populations, starting with pregnancy. Pregnant women are explicitly exempt by religious law, yet the social pressure here is immense. What are the medical risks?
The risks are definitely significant, especially if the fast happens during the first trimester. You're looking at maternal dehydration, of course, but also documented risks to the fetus.
Like what?
Studies have linked fasting during pregnancy to risks like lower birth weight. Some data suggests a reduction of up to 50 grams. Now, that might sound small, but medically it's a concerning factor, especially if the mother is already nutritionally stressed.
And there was a more nuanced concern about maternal metabolism, something about ketones.
Yes. When the mother shifts into fat-burning mode, her body produces ketone bodies. The concern is that these ketones can cross the placenta and potentially impact the neurodevelopment of the fetus. The data isn't conclusive on long-term harm, but the potential risk is high enough that the consensus from OBGYNs is firm. Avoid fasting during pregnancy.
What about children and adolescents? When do the medical and religious views align on what's safe?
They align pretty well, actually. The religious rule is post-puberty. The obligation doesn't begin until physical maturity. In fact, many scholars actively discourage full-day fasting for young teens, say, in that 7 to 10-year-old range.
Recommending partial fasts instead.
Exactly, to teach discipline without the risk. And medically, that makes perfect sense. Kids need consistent nutrition for growth, for bone density, and for a steady glucose supply to their developing brains.
Finally, medication. This gets overlooked so often. How does condensing all your doses into a short nighttime window affect how well the drugs work?
It can completely undermine the treatment. Think about timed drugs, antibiotics, blood pressure meds, anticoagulants. Moving their schedule to just a few hours at night can create dangerous spikes in drug concentration, followed by long periods where the medicine is basically absent from the bloodstream.
And this brings us back to that core ethical dilemma for doctors and patients.
It does. The conflict between a clear religious exemption and that powerful, ingrained social pressure that stops people from taking care of their health.
We should also touch on mental health, which is so often ignored in these discussions.
We absolutely should. The extreme starve-feast cycle can be a huge trigger for people with a history of eating disorders. Binge eating disorder, bulimia. That pattern of severe restriction followed by a large celebratory meal is incredibly dangerous for their recovery.
That's a critical hidden layer of concern. A practice meant for spiritual growth becomes a barrier to recovery.
Exactly.
So, if we synthesize all of this, the medical literature, the 59 critical questions, is Ramadan fasting universally healthy?
The clear answer is a resounding no. The benefits are real, but only for healthy individuals who meticulously manage their sleep and diet. For vulnerable populations, the risks are significant, documented, and the theological consensus confirms the exemptions aren't just permitted, they are mandatory.
So, what does this all mean? Our deep dive reveals that the major public health concern isn't a flaw in the theology. It's the vast, dangerous gulf between that crystal-clear guidance and the cultural pressure that forces vulnerable people to ignore it.
And this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. We have lots of short-term observational studies. We know what happens after 1 month.
But we lack the long-term data.
Exactly. What are the cumulative effects on, say, liver function, bone density, or all-cause mortality from decades of repeated, annual, month-long circadian and metabolic disruption?
That cumulative effect. That's the real knowledge gap that future research has to address.
It really is. To understand the true impact of this practice over a lifetime.
Thanks for diving in with us.